I'm wearing the collection. I got this pin from CEO 2022. Okay, there's a peach and puff on screen right now, so I think this is a good point for me to start the video before this ends in 5 years. Hopefully I will get to see something cool after I finish recording the entire video, which is going to be pretty long, I think. Anyway, I'm going to clap again just to... A platform fighter is a series of games that spawned from the Super Smash Bros. Series from Nintendo. Today, I want to go over the massive genre as a whole and kind of draw an evolution timeline from the start of the genre to where it is now. I'm going to be playing every single game that I put on here, either in the past or before actually writing the video, obviously. But this isn't going to be in chronological order, because, I mean, some games will come out before others. That's just how life works. Just a note, I'm going to be playing all of these games on this GameCube controller right here. The world's worst GameCube controller. It has hella snapback. The buttons don't really respond sometimes. The only good thing is I stole a high left shoulder from a different GameCube controller that I used to have that I may or may not have broken while I was playing a different game that's not Melee, because I love Melee. That will be at the end of this timeline. I'll reveal it when that time comes, probably. I will be reviewing these based on my own personal system that I will cover in the future. But for now... Super Smash Bros. Melee. This game is mainly going to be the base of the genre and standards that I will be using to review the entire series. The majority of these games work in the same way. You're in a little box on the screen with a stage, and platforms are typically required. Some games definitely put them in there to fill a gap in what they need to put in, but that's for later. Every character has a unique set of moves, typically. Within their move set, you hit an opponent with your move, their little number at the bottom of the screen goes up. The higher that number is, the further they get pushed back whenever you hit them with a different move. Your goal is to knock your opponent off the screen by getting their number high enough, hitting them with a strong move, pushing them to their death where they lose a life, but we're going to call those stocks in this. It's really simple. I just explained it poorly. Melee defined the genre, I believe. It's renowned for its incredibly broken physics engine. If you don't know, Melee was made extraordinarily fast. It was made in 13 whole months. Throughout development, they found many weird quirks with the physics engine itself, the way two different actions interact with the world and themselves, and they decided to leave those in. This led to a lot of movement achievable, from just dash dancing to koopabackdashwaveslide hoverwalkmoonland. It's hoverwalkmoonland, but I just can't get those two words around. It's whatever. You don't need to know what that is unless you want to, in which case watch AsumSaus. However, since these movements were more or less unintentional, they can be very difficult to pull off, and some aren't even useful in 1v1 gameplay. Quick note, round 1 hasn't ended of Polish versus Lunar Dusk. Polish is winning by 1 stock at 2 minutes and 33 seconds left of this game. This is round 1 out of best of 5. Yeah, this set isn't ending. Because of this, the skill ceiling was way higher overall, and the game was less accessible than it could have been, which led future fan games to try and attempt to create more accessible versions of these mechanics, or even make new mechanics that make the game better. Or not. I really enjoy this game. I want to make a video reviewing Melee just like as a whole, like not within the context of a bunch of different games. But it's just the best movement in any platform fighter. It's almost because nobody can do it on purpose, and the people who did it on accident, who know how it was done, refuse to acknowledge that it happened. So I'm going to be reviewing the coming games based off of in relation to the Melee, off of their aesthetics. That's not legible, but it means the way the game looks, the sound. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh god, I got it on my wall. The online experience, the offline experience, movement, a platform fighter in concept relies on you being able to travel pretty much anywhere in a giant space, and it not feeling good can be detrimental to a game's value. The character count and how much of those characters are unique in terms of how do you play them? Do you just sit there and spam neutral air just in the same spot over and over again with 5 different characters? There may be 5 characters, but more or less, that's just one. And that is all my criteria. I'm missing one. Oh, and potential. By this I mean, do I think the game can last as long as Melee? The Melee, if you don't know, has been around for like 20 plus years. It came out in 2001, and it has been around for a long time because all of these factors are really good. Especially now, online. With online games in this category, I'm not going to be going off of how they were at launch, but how can you play these games now? If it doesn't have an online, it gets a 0. I'm not going to do like I'm not going to count it thing because it just skews all the scores. For Melee, so you should know for the future, maybe when I make a video in the future, but just to have a baseline. The aesthetics of Melee are 8. Everything's out of 10. Or an 8. Online is a 9. Offline, 7. Movement, 10. Character count, 7. Unique characters, 7. And potential, 7. Giving overall a 7.9 out of 10. Now we're going to look at a couple games in the rest of the series to see how they fare before and after Melee, and what they do to further the genre as a whole. That was a good one. Okay. So, the next game in the series is going to be the first Super Smash Brothers. Also, apparently, those are a really good set that I missed while I was editing. Yay, I love making videos during Shine. Super Smash Brothers is the first game in the series, and definitely feels like it. I might have had controller issues, definitely, because I could not input a single thing without tap jump. And sadly, I didn't get to see all 12 characters. The game's graphics are, obviously, a little worse and are updated in every single way in Melee. However, I think it's kind of charming and cute, so I don't have much of a problem with it. There's no online. As far as I can tell, I've done a little bit of research. There's no online that I could find, but that doesn't really matter since nobody really, because nobody really plays the game. A lot of people who play the game focus on combo contests, which I'll touch on in a second, but there's no online mode. But the offline mode was not the greatest experience for me as somebody who doesn't really grind this game. It was very much a don't get hit fest with broken characters, broken hitboxes. But I will say that movement's pretty lackluster also. The one thing this game really has going for it in today's world, in my opinion, is combo contests. The game has year-long hit stun and is absurdly fun. I'll put a clip of a combo contest over this fan that I need to clean again. I just cleaned it. I need to clean it again.
Uses the forward air to both hit him and move the shell. Forward tilt.
The
Bomb.
bomb into the fair.
Get it.
Wow. Ain't that cool? While I personally like Smash 64, I have to give it an objective review by the standards I set earlier. I'm going to do this again. Yeah. Overall, I should keep that out of 10. I give the game's aesthetics a 6 out of 10. Online, sadly, gets a 0 out of 10. Offline gets a 4. Movement, a 2. Character count gets a 5 out of 10. The uniqueness of every character is amazing. A 9 out of 10. And the potential, I sadly think the potential is going to be a 2 out of 10. There's a lot more Smash 64 tournaments than there are like Smash 4 or Brawl tournaments. But I still think the potential is pretty low because there's not much actually competitive that can move on with this game. It's just kind of a fun sideshow. Some people grind a couple combos, etc. The next game in the series that we're going to jump straight on into, this is a Spider-Man ad. Ignore this. Ignore Spider-Man. Don't. It's a good game. Play it, but ignore it. I forgot to give this an overall review. The overall review is a 4 out of 10. Oh god, we have an Ices on screen. Actually, it's not that bad. Ices is really fun right now. I don't know what about that. The next game in the series is Super Smash Bros. Brawl. We're running out of space really fast. I should have gotten a bigger whiteboard. Clearly, this is not in chronological order. Super Smash Bros. Brawl comes after Super Smash Bros. 1, but Super Smash Bros. 1 comes before Melee. Just thought I'd put that out there. I'm scared to talk about Brawl because Super Smash Bros. Brawl is either the worst or the best Super Smash Bros. Game, depending on your point of view. I'm not going to go into full detail here, but a lot of the game felt deliberately designed to show competitive players that it's not their game, to just stay away. The hate for this game feels pretty unwarranted, looking at it through today's standards, but looking at it from the point at the time. Melee was blowing up. Everybody loved it. Melee had become this massively well-known and respected esport. It was loved for everything I'm talking about in this video. Then Nintendo announces a sequel to one of the most fast-paced, amazing games ever with updated graphics, new characters, and more development time to make it feel great. Include more tech. Make the already existing tech like wave dashing or koopabackdashwaveslide, hoverwalkmoonland, jump easier, but they didn't do that. They gutted so many features like directional air dodges so you can't wave land or wave dash. They even added tripping. That one was for the Melee heads, and you cannot argue that tripping was not put there for Melee players. They just made it less worthwhile to move on the ground. They made Meta Knight, who just is everything wrong with the game, shutting off half the characters. It felt so disappointing coming from a sequel to Melee. One of the pluses I can give it is that Brawl has Subspace Emissary. I'm not going to talk about it in this video. I am going to make another video about Emissary. It's widely known and not even argued one of the best story modes in a platform fighter to this day. The online was obviously unplayable back in the day, but we're going to go by today's standards. So it's the same as PM, because it's done in the same version as Dolphin. The game looks great, an obvious step up from Melee. While I will say, the more hyper-realistic graphics don't suit itself well to aging like Melee does, I don't see it having much potential. People don't really play Brawl that much, and it doesn't feel like you can optimize it any more than it already was in its really short lifespan. Overall, I have to give the game's aesthetics a 7 out of 10. Online, a 6 out of 10. Offline, a 7 out of 10. The movement is going to be a 3 out of 10. The character count is a 7 again. The character uniqueness is probably a 6. And the potential is 1. There's still Brawl tournaments occasionally, making my final review a 5.3 out of 10. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Let me write it down. I played Super Smash Bros. Ultimate since release, for 3 years up until Sora came out. And it took me a while to realize this, but in hindsight, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate feels like a game that's meant to be played, but not enjoyed. That doesn't make sense. Let me try to explain. A lot of Nintendo games in their long-running series, like Mario Party, Mario Kart, they used to have a lot of personality, a lot of character. The UI was so colorful and all this stuff was so cool, and then Nintendo started to get more modern with it, which is really one of the weaknesses, I think, of their company. They take long-running, soulful series and just kind of strip out all the personality until it's a generic cookie-cutter version of that game. It's like they have a base form of the game that they used to add stuff to, and they said, oh, if we just remove all of that stuff and release every game like this, if the base form is, it's decent, it's playable, then all of our games will be good. And now we can reproduce them infinitely. And it really ruins their games. Luckily, I think Super Smash Bros. Ultimate isn't as bad as like Mario Party is. Mainly because it looks alright. I think the UI is interesting. It's not super just white and black. Although it is kind of boring to look at. But the problem isn't really the presentation of the game. It's the game itself. The idea behind Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is that it's the ultimate version of the game. It's all of the characters from all the other games coming back. Some of them having been cut or changed. They're all back. They're here to be a fun, enjoyable game for all the fans. It's a love letter to the series. That's awesome. But when you actually play the game, a lot of the characters feel the same. It feels like all the sword fighters have this circle nair that you can just sit there and short hop nairing. If somebody hits you, I guess I outplayed them. Half the characters feel the same. That's why you don't see most of the characters in like top 8s, which is crazy because a lot of people play a lot of characters because there's a lot of characters, but you don't really see a lot of them, and people don't like some of the characters. Like when I play random, which is really one of the only ways to have fun in this game after a certain point, there's like 12 different characters that I just cannot stand, that I do not want to get, that I don't want to play, but I can't just leave the game and restart because I'm playing with people. The idea of like, oh, let's allow people to pick what characters they get in random didn't cross their mind because they didn't think about it. There's all these characters, everybody wants to play all of them. It doesn't feel like it was designed for people to enjoy it for what they want out of it. It's a problem that Smash has had for a while, since Brawl. Nintendo wants their games to be played their way, and Ultimate is the ultimate version of that. They said, we'll give you a little compromise, we won't put in tripping, and that's about it. On top of all that, the movement is god-awful. A key thing in Melee is platforms and how they're used. Platforms are typically used in Melee to extend combos, do counterattacks with shield dropping. There's so many different ways to get off of a platform and on a platform that they can be used to extend a combo like they're a part of the stage. In Ultimate, platforms are definitely a second thought. It's like they took platform fighters and they're like, oh, we have to put platforms in the game? Okay, we'll just kind of throw them in and not build the game around the use of platforms. You can't get off of platforms in this game. Dropping through the platform takes forever. You can't like wave land off of it. Even when you do wave slide on a platform, you get cut off at the edge. It's not like the platforms are a part of the one stage. It's like the platforms are separate stages on top of them. and it just doesn't work out well, and it's more of an obstacle than it is a gameplay mechanic. If you want more in-depth about that, because I don't know a lot about that, I would watch AsumSaus' video. It'll be on the screen right now while I scroll here. I have to talk about the online. We all know what I'm going to say. It is terrible. It is so embarrassing that they released the game in the condition that they did and said it is playable, because the online is downright horrendous. I'm going to say now, I thought the online was alright. It's passable if you don't really know what good online in a fighting game is like. But that can't be an excuse. Saying it was passable for me for a little bit is not an excuse for it not being good at all. It is so poorly implemented in every capacity. It's honestly an embarrassment that I'm surprised they haven't properly fixed yet. The potential for this game, it's there. It's going to last for a while, but it's going to die eventually. That Smash games do. New Smash games come out. Maybe a platform fighter will finally take over the mantle and become the Smash killer. Who knows? But Ultimate is going to die. The only thing I can really say about the tournament scene right now is it's the way it's always been. I feel like Ultimate has enough mechanics and interesting features that we could make a different rule set that isn't the same way it's been since Melee. But I don't play Ultimate. It's not up to me. The potential is not the highest, but it's definitely not rock bottom. My final scores are going to be an aesthetics of 8, online of 3, offline of 7, the movement of 4, character count 9. I mean, there's almost 90 characters. The character uniqueness of 5, and the potential of 5, making my final score a 5.9 out of 10. Now that we're done with the Super Smash Bros. Series, we can finally move on to the fan games. And I think the logical first step for fan games is Super Smash Flash 2. Admittedly, I don't know a lot about Super Smash Flash. It's definitely a game that feels like a fan fiction in a way, with characters that could only be dreamed in the Smash Bros. Series. Sadly, it's not really distributable, and I think the devs knew that because they've started working on a new game called Framemakers. I'm not going to talk about it in this video because I know absolutely nothing about it. I know that it's going to be coming out, I think, either late this year or early next year. So maybe when it comes out, I'll review it separately. But we're here to talk about Smash Flash, not Framemakers. I played this game for a bit. I went and I practiced how I recorded my original thing, then went back to record some more because I thought I didn't give it a fair shot. And honestly, I think I was really having controller issues with a lot of the non-Nintendo games, because in this game, it just didn't feel as good as it looks in other videos. So my view is obviously going to be skewed. I don't have a good means of playing the game and feeling the way that it actually is. Aesthetically speaking, I think it looks great. I love the pixelated 8-bit style, although I would definitely recommend playing it in its native resolution and only full screening if you're far away from your screen, because my eyes started to hurt after a while of playing the game. The online, I didn't think it was that good. There was a lot of input delay on my end, and the gap between new and old players, it's really big and hard to get used to, especially when the movement's not as good as I would expect it to be. The offline is great. There's a lot of things to do in 1v1 or 1v1 in offline mode, so I think it'll definitely keep you going to practice moves. Every time you're not playing against a real person, there's something to do, and Smash games aren't really notorious for taking up like single player time unless you're Brawl. I would call this game a Smash clone in every way. I think this is one of the only games on this list that I can really say that about. I don't like the term Smash clone, and I feel like it takes away a lot of the hard work that people put into these games, but this game is a Smash clone, and I'm glad that they're moving on to a bigger project that won't be. So I'm going to give it my review of an aesthetic review of a 6 out of 10. The online, 4 out of 10. The offline, 7 out of 10. Movement, at 7. The character count, 8. Character uniqueness, 6. And potential, 3. There's some tournaments, but it's not going anywhere. Giving my final review a 5.8 out of 10. This game serves as a good example that really doesn't change too much. So from here on in the list, we're going to be looking at games that did change a lot. Some of them that grew to become way bigger things. So we're going to start that with Rivals of Aether. Rivals of Aether is probably the most popular platform fighter in the Smash community. It is one of the greatest examples of taking cool tech from Melee and changing the formula enough to separate itself. It truly pioneered the genre in regards to proving that you don't just need to remake Smash or just copy the gameplay and throw in different characters that nobody knows. It's possible just to make a platform fighter. It controls really well and is very accessible, but still has a lot of layers of tech and skill, and the leveling system between new players and old players is there. But this is because Rivals started doing something really different that more games need to start doing. That's their tutorial. Their tutorial is actually astounding. It teaches you everything you need to learn and more. I can't beat the tutorial because I don't know what some DI things are and I don't know how to do it properly, but you don't even need to. The game looks great. Similar to Smash Flash, where up close it can really start to hurt your eyes a little bit, but the sound is amazing. It sounds so good. I can't believe that they managed to make a game sound this good. Every hit feels awesome. The way the screen pauses for just a second when you get hit with a really strong move. The online feels fantastic. The skill gap is massive, and it will be nearly impossible to win early on, but it feels great otherwise. The game has an incredible potential, especially with the announcement of Rivals of Aether 2. I'm a little worried and skeptical about the changes they might be making, but this game has earned my trust. I trust that they're going to be making this game incredible. So I'm just going to jump straight into my final review, giving it aesthetically an 8 out of 10. The online, 8 out of 10. Offline, 7. Movement, 9. Character count, an 8. The character uniqueness, a 9. And the potential is an 8 out of 10. Giving this my first 8 plus out of 10 at exactly an 8.1 out of 10. Now we're going to look at another successful fan game made by a great team that moved on to something a little bigger. Slap City. Slap City is a game developed by Ludosity, who would later go on to develop NASB. More on that later. Slap City originally grew in popularity due to its hilarious concept and broken character design. Most notably the character of Ultra Fish Bungeon 3000, a boss character from the indie game It'll Do, who also appears in the game. I'm going to preface right now, I don't have the game, but I did play it and I did enjoy it a while ago. Fish Bungeon was broken and definitely led to the rise in the game's popularity. I can't state one thing that led to the shrinking in popularity, but I can definitely name a few different things that were put together. For one, the game started growing because it was poorly balanced, yet I think that was the strength of the game. It was goofy and designed around being fun and innovative on the genre, without focusing too hard on being competitive. The movement was very fun, with the introduction of the clutch mechanic. They also kept stuff like moonwalking and L canceling in the game. However, eventually, because of the game's popularity, they decided they wanted to try and be more competitive, rebalancing the game around an actual tournament scene. And that's great, but it didn't seem to keep people exactly. It threw a lot of people off. Another thing that might have stunted the growth after the rebalancing was that the characters aren't really super well known throughout the gaming industry. I'm sure a lot of people didn't know what It'll Do was until this game came out, which is good. I'm glad that game is getting more popularity because it's pretty good. So people weren't joining for the goofiness or for the characters, so people were joining in far slower than they used to be. The diehard fans are really enjoying it, and that's awesome. I'm really glad that they have a game that they enjoy and that the devs listen to them. But I also think, because of the next game I'm going to be talking about, people aren't really going to be coming in for new balance patches either, because their team is now split a little bit. They're focusing on two different games that they want to keep alive, which is why I'm going to give the potential probably a little lower than it actually is. I think the online and offline experience is very fun, with plenty of single player things you can do. The actual battle experience is a lot more fair, but still has some things that are fun to play with. The movement, as I already mentioned, is really good. It feels great to control, and is definitely more thoughtful of the things you can do with it. And this is just off memory alone. As of writing this, I haven't played the game in years, but my thoughts have not changed. We're going to jump straight into the review, giving this game's aesthetics a 7 out of 10, online 6, offline 7, movement 8, character count 7, character uniqueness 8, and potential 5. My final review being a 6.9 out of 10. Nickelodeon. They learned from the mistakes of PlayStation All-Stars and decided they wanted to focus on making a decent game. And they wanted to ask people who were known in the community for making fun, goofy, cartoonish games. So they went to Ludosity to make the next game, Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl, otherwise known as NASB. This is a platform fighter themed around Nickelodeon. It was developed partly by the people who made Slap City, who were hired by Nickelodeon's gaming branch. It more or less felt like Slap City, given the change from a clutch button to a sort of inverse clutch. Instead of pressing the clutch button to change momentum instantly in midair, you have to hold the clutch button to not change momentum, and you have to hold it, which definitely doesn't feel that great. The game has good looking parts, but overall I could say it isn't the greatest looking in some places. Some characters are too big or too small, and there doesn't seem to be a consistent sizing between characters. The elephant in the room is the audio design. At launch, there was no voice acting, and the sounds themselves were pretty boring, all things considered. I believe this is not the fault of the developers in any regard. I don't think anybody can argue that. It's the fault of something that I'll touch on a little later. The online actually wasn't too bad. I played on Switch, and it was fun. Not a lot of connection issues that weren't assignable to the Switch just being bad. The PC version of the game is better in every regard that I'm going to talk about here. I think the movement's pretty good. I don't think that there's much purpose to wave dashing, as opposed to simply just dashing. I like the idea of having less moves for the sake of being able to travel more while attacking, but I think it just lowers the skill ceiling more than the skill floor, since it doesn't raise accessibility by making inputs easier. Instead, it just makes you do less inputs. The character count is pretty respectable, considering that they're still adding new characters. The characters feel very different for the most part. Very few characters play exactly the same after a certain point. Sadly, having such simple moves and such limiting movesets can lead to some characters being very spammy and boring at a low level, but past the medium point of the game, it can get very in-depth and interesting. I think that the game has a lot of potential to grow or become more popular in the future. I'm glad that NASB has yet another platform fighter, and that has found another home in the broader FGC. Smash fans are very much a closed box, an echo chamber, if you will, so I'm glad NASB made it out and found a home somewhere else. Especially now that Nickelodeon seems to trust the game more. They definitely didn't trust that NASB was going to be a good game, so they didn't want to put a lot of budget into it, which is probably why they couldn't get voice actors or good sound guys. So now that the game has had some success, I can imagine they're going to be more willing to give a higher budget and work with the team more on future endeavor. We're going to jump to my overall scores. Aesthetically, it's a 6 out of 10. Online is a 7 out of 10. The offline is going to be a 6 out of 10. The movement is an 8. The character uniqueness is a 9. Potential, a 7. And my final review is a 7.3 out of 10. Given I'm a little biased. We're going to take a quick look at the modding community and what happens when a small independent group of fans are disappointed with a game and decide to take matters into their own hands. Alright, here we are. New look, new jacket, new position, new me. We're going to try to speedrun this a little bit because I'm running out of time and a little bit of patience recording this day after day, and I kind of want to get the video out. So we're going to hop straight into Project Melee / Project Plus. Project Melee is a mod of Super Smash Bros. Brawl that aims to take the good parts of the game and combine it with the not so good parts. Basically, taking the game that we got and changing, removing, and adding whole parts and features to it in an attempt to align it more with the idea of a sequel to Melee. I will say, this game feels fantastic. It's even more fluid than Melee, with more characters who are all different and special. It is a true sequel in every regard. They also developed their own character in Knuckles, and he's pretty interesting to play. I imagine he's way better to watch at top level. The online is pretty much the same as Brawl, given they go through the same dolphin mode. And when I say it's the same, I mean everything's the same, including subspace. I might actually go through and play subspace in both normal Brawl and P+, so don't do that video before me. Either way, this has everything good about Melee, but better, and everything good about Brawl, but better. Okay, I don't want to talk about it now. I want to make another video about it. I know, crazy. But I can't give this game a good score for potential. Nintendo hates this game on all fronts, almost as bad as Gimmer, straight up. They do not want this game to grow. It may or may not possibly have a chance of maybe potentially having an underground secret competitive scene, but it almost certainly cannot make it to the big stage, at least while it's technically still being a Smash Bros. Game, which is going to lead us into our next area after I give it my score. Overall, I give the aesthetics a 9, the online a 6, offline a 9, movement 10, character count 8, character uniqueness 9, and potential 5. Giving my overall review an exact 8 out of 10. Now, I said P Plus can't become its own big game as long as it's still technically a Smash game. And they know this. Which is why they've moved on to... Okay, before we get to RUSHDOWN Revolt, we have to talk about a game before it. after P Plus was shut down, some of the developer team said, you know what? We don't need the Nintendo names. We can prove that anybody can make a Smash game. Not just anybody can do it, honestly. Akshon Esports already did a great video on this. It'll be right here. But this game is very important to the rest of my video. Icon suffers from a couple big problems. For one, it's not too different from Smash in almost any way except for the random unknown characters who there are already a few of. For the characters with very obvious draws to characters from Smash, more accurately PM, the few changes they made seem to have made the characters either worse or barely better. Luckily, there are some new characters. There's a character that is like 2 characters who can like teleport around the stage or swap bodies, which is cool, and I bet would have some cool use if this game was still around. The game doesn't look the greatest. There are also a few, very few new stage ideas. Side note, I don't know why, but I feel like they just like hated Marth. The way that they made the Marth type character, I just don't think they liked Marth as a character. There are a lot of customization options. However, they don't seem to be worth much since there's nobody to show it off to. Another side note, not having the CPU stand still by default is weird. Like, I like some of the stuff they tried to include with training mode, but I just don't like the way the CPU works, or even the UI of training mode. It's really bad. So we're just going to quickly throw this on the board. I don't want to spend too much time on it. Aesthetic 6, online 0. Offline 6, movement 8. Character number 3. Unique character 8, potential 0. Making my final review a 4.4 out of 10. Now we're going to talk about RUSHDOWN REVOLT. Where do I begin to discuss RUSHDOWN REVOLT? I only wish I had more time to play it. Sadly, I had to make this video, but RUSHDOWN REVOLT took the concept of icons and what they already had and threw most of it away. They said, we don't want that. That all sucks. I guess they kept a couple characters and stages, but whatever. They've added numerous new systems, made the mechanics of what was before easier, and then added new mechanics that are also really easy. Yet everything builds to this high skill ceiling. It feels great. I didn't get to play it online too much, but I can promise you it's outstanding. There's already a nice story mode that acts as a tutorial, and there's more characters than icons, and they're still adding characters. Every character is unique and awesome. It looks amazing and sounds perfect. The developers have gone out of their way to cultivate a scene that only grows. So please, if you like platform fighters, go play this game. As of the time I'm recording this, it's free to play on Steam, so do it, please. I'm just going to say high scores around the board with an aesthetics of 9, online of 9, offline of 9, movement of 10, character count of 8, character uniqueness of 9, potential 10, bringing my overall score to a 9.1 out of 10. That's all I need to say. Go play RUSHDOWN REVOLT. Okay, now that the RUSHDOWN REVOLT segment is over, let me quickly touch on a game that already exists but isn't really talked about in the wider Smash scene. It's complicated, but this technically counts as a platform fighter and helps build to my grand conclusion. Brawlhalla. Brawlhalla is incredibly popular, yet not a lot of Smash people acknowledge it. I personally think it looks good. Sounds nice. I like the items. And while my controller doesn't work too well with it, it did feel nice to play. And I'm sure with more practice, I could be really good at the game. The online feels really good. And I love having a ranked mode. I don't necessarily not like being able to play the same mode as ranked with unranked. That kind of sucks. As I'm sure you guys can tell, I don't have a lot to say. The game is massive and gets a ton of developer support. The UI could use some changes and people can stop acting like the game is some super difficult, impossible skill. I play Melee, which isn't the hardest game. Not a lot of platformers are that hard, except for like RUSHDOWN, REVOLT at top level, whatever. Brawlhalla is probably one of the easiest platform fighters, so just because it's free doesn't mean that it's the greatest platform fighter. There's a lot of characters, a lot of which don't really feel like they're too different. That's really my only complaint. So I'm just gonna jump in with an aesthetics of 8, online of 9, offline of 7, movement of 7, character count of 10, I guess, character uniqueness 5, and potential 8, giving this a 7.7 out of 10. It's alright, it's just kind of it's a mid game, to be honest. But this speaks to free-to-play games. They are way more popular in the long run because more people can play them. More casual guys can hang out at school and be like, hey bro, you see my Brawlhalla Scores? But they aren't really in depth a lot of the time. They really do separate themselves too much while keeping too many similar things, and it's good that they're branching out. I just don't think Brawlhalla is that fun after a certain point. It's just a decent game. The next game, though, I have a lot of faith for. Multiversus. Before we start, I just want to mention a lot of games didn't have native GameCube controller support. So I was using some third party, I think it's called like Delphin Novin or whatever. So Multiversus developers, if you're seeing this, because I hope you are, please add native GameCube controller support. Oh my god. Please add native GameCube controller support. Other than that, Multiversus is a weird area for me to talk about since I like the game, kinda, but it also has problems. But also that doesn't matter because the game isn't even finished yet. It's a weird situation. So just understand really quickly, I'm gonna preface, my problems with this game are fixable and they don't detract from the game. And just because the game is being developed doesn't mean you aren't allowed to complain about it. When you complain about a game that's in the process of being developed, the developers have a chance to fix it. So I'm going to be talking about this more as a request, more as a general review of what I experienced from the game, in the hopes that maybe a developer will find this video, see something, say, okay, well that kind of makes sense, I guess we'll work on that a little bit. There's only really one thing that I'm going to actually suggest, aside from native game controller support, but that should be base game. There's only really one real suggestion that I hope people listen to. So, Multiversus doesn't have the best netcode. A lot of times I will die because the game will just kind of remove a jump or an air dodge or a special from me in the air just through lag. Or I'll hit somebody off the stage, go for the edge guard, and then my opponent, nothing personnel, is behind me and kills me, and I died for being better than them. The number of characters is already really good, and they're all unique, but god damn, I can't wait for the hitbox fixing patch. Because some of the characters have hitboxes that are ludicrously broken. Speaking of Finn, I could go on a rant for about an hour about his backpack alone. I think the move is great in concept, but oh my god, they just cannot design this move. A vacuum effect should only take place when hit by a move. A vacuum effect isn't a thing that just like teleports you into the move. No matter how well you space it, the backpack, it's supposed to keep you in the move longer. It's not supposed to bring you into it. Speaking of spacing, you can't do that You can't even control the game well. The game is so unreasonably floaty to the point where it just kind of feels sloppy. I can short hop to the ledge and exactly time my down air. I play Harley, by the way, my down air. So that as soon as I let go, I'll be just over the edge. And I'll either fly to China or I won't fly far enough because I held back a little bit. Then I whiff an edge guard and I die. It feels like I'm rolling a dice every time I press a button in this game. Sometimes as Harley, I'll be doing my forward air to forward tilt. And sometimes, even though I'm touching the ground and the game is supposed to register that as canceling my forward air and turning it into a forward tilt, they just keep doing the forward air into the second hit, which knocks my opponent away from me and me away from my opponent. And then they get the chance to turn around and just kill me flat out because the game couldn't register the floor. The one thing in life that makes me the most angry is having no control over something I'm actively doing. If I'm driving and the wheel doesn't turn, I'm gonna get kind of frustrated. I'll die, but I'll die frustrated. If I'm playing a game and my character doesn't move how I'm actively inputting for them to move, because every input in this game is like an ice level in a water level, I'm gonna get frustrated. If I feel like I have control over a game, then losing becomes my fault. But when the game teleports me to the blast zone because they just decided that, he should die, and I can't do a combo because the game doesn't know where the floor on its own maps are, then I can't just accept that I'm the one who lost. When the game just deletes some of my projectiles before I can actually use them, then it's not my fault. When I do an attack on a stage and the game just cancels it, then it's not my fault when I get hit because of it. The game looks really good, has a great balance of character size and kind of weight to a degree that NASB did, just because the characters are generally sized similarly in their own shows and have lots of references of being in the other universes. It sucks that some of the music isn't good and some of the music is amazing, but other than the music, the sound design is pretty good. But even though I've done nothing but complain, I don't hate this game. I just hope that they do fix these issues, which it seems like they definitely will. This is a developer's first game, to my knowledge, and they do care about their players a lot. They're constantly working on this game and have plans to constantly update it and make it better. I have even mentioned the perks and my biggest problem with the game, that if changed, I think will make this a near perfect platform fighter. So good that I might play it more than Melee. It might even become my main esport. Okay, so quickly before that, we're going to talk about perks. Perks are equipables that change certain aspects of the game to make it a better experience for the player. Typically aspects that are there anyways, but it just makes them a little easier. If maybe you can't do an input that well, the perk will help you do that input or combo easier. Simple. Increasing DI angles, raising iframes during dodges, doing more damage and knockback in certain situations. Speaking of knockback, this leads into my problem. You can't tech in this game, which just takes more control away from the player. Teching is a staple option in every platform fighter. If you don't know, teching is the ability to instantly halt momentum after being knocked into a surface, wall, ceiling, or floor. It is always super simple. Typically just a single dodge button press within a set amount of frames of hitting the surface. And the developers knew that bouncing off walls in this game sucks, because they have a perk that lowers the momentum kept from bouncing off of walls. If you add a teching option, you can keep the perk, just make it X% easier to hit the tech. Instead of a 20 frame window to press the dodge button when hitting a wall, now it's 25%. Anyway, just turn teching into an option, teach in the tutorial, top the momentum decrease perk with an easier tech window perk, and the game would just become better. And I promise you, some of the people who play this game don't know basic platform fighter knowledge, which is cool, but they've never experienced teching, and teching would just make the game better. and even I promise you they would like it. So we're going to give this a quick review. The aesthetics, 8 online, 7 offline, 8 movement 5, character count 10, unique characters 9, potential 10, my final review being an 8.1 out of 10. Look, platform fighters are an interesting genre, and personally my favorite of all the games that are esports. While I have some gripes with Multiversus, at least they care about their players and want to make the game better. They're supporting the competitive scene way more than some companies. I don't have much of a point to this video, aside from the fact that I wanted to play a bunch of platform fighters and, well, see if I can find a game that I like more than Melee. At the moment, I'm probably going to stick to Melee, but I am more than willing to play any game that's not made by Nintendo. I might make a video about that in the future. I promise to make a lot of videos. I have a whole thing on the bottom of my board here for videos that I want to make. If you like the video, like it. If you have any criticisms, like it, since dislikes are useless. But please comment any constructive criticism, and I'll try to reply if you made it this far in the video at least. Bye.